first main segment on Breakfast Show, and in it we will be discussing the latest projects at the National Water Research Center, especially that Dr. Mohammed Abdel Muttalib, head of the National Water Research Center, attended the preparatory meeting for developing and employing technological and management integral solutions for the treatment of wastewater and its use in irrigation. And actually that's a project which is sponsored and financed by the European Union, and it's not only in Egypt but it's in North Africa, including Egypt, Tunisia and Morocco, and that preparatory meeting took place in Bologna, Italy. And to shed more light on that topic and more, we have with us the General Supervisor for the NWRC President Office, Dr. Alaء Ahmed Abdin. Welcome with us and good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Dr. First tell us more about this project and how did it come?
Okay, actually this project is one of the projects that's financed by the Horizon 2020 mechanism from the European Commission, from the European Union. And the Horizon 2020 was established like a few years back for the decontamination of the Mediterranean Sea. And we have been working for writing the documentation to win the project for more than a year right now. And it was like two stages proposal. We passed the first stage, and we were invited to go for the second stage, and we finally won the financing of the project. And the project actually is implemented through different countries. We are having partners from Italy, France, Netherlands, Switzerland, and Spain, and Greece, Cyprus. This is from Europe, and from North Africa, as you mentioned, we're having Egypt, Tunisia, and Morocco.
Well, now, Doctor, for the project itself and the steps of it, mainly there are various projects. There are around 6 projects, some for the making use of the underground water, the desalination of the sea, in addition to the latest one, which is concerning using the wastewater in irrigation purposes. Now, what type of crops or products can be irrigated with the recycled water? Like, can all types of products or crops be irrigated with such type of water?
Mainly it depends on the water quality that's produced from the treatment. See, here in the project we are piloting different technologies tailored to the needs of the African countries. We're having pilot in Egypt, in one of our experimental stations in Manzala near Port Said, and we are going to treat the drainage water of Bahr al-Baar drain, which is quite highly polluted at the tail end of the drain. So for answering your question regarding which crops will be or can be cultivated using the treated wastewater, it's mainly dependent on the water quality that's produced from the treatment plant. So if it is quite clean, we can cultivate like normal food crops. Actually, it depends. So we are piloting this regarding, and also it is very important to mention that the waste and pollution in Bahr al-Baar drain in Egypt, it's different from the pollutant characteristics in Tunisia and Morocco. This is why it's going to be like a cooperation between the Northern African countries, the 3 countries, and the European countries that will bring the technology and establish it here.
Yes.
And actually it is very, very important from this kind of cooperation, and the project is to have technology settlement, technology transfer. We don't want any more turnkey technology. They bring technology and they apply it and that's it and they leave. No, there is a very huge component in the project for technology transfer, for capacity building for our staff, and even for business opportunities. Like in the project, there are certain SMEs, small and medium enterprises from Europe that are participating in the project to look for business opportunities with the local Egyptian investors and private sector.
Yes.
Sir, in the Gulf area, they are depending mainly on purifying the seawater.
Yeah.
And of course, now in Egypt, we will have in the future problems with the Nile River for cultivation and for drinking. So can we depend, we have of course 2 seas, the red and the white. so the Mediterranean. So can we depend on the seawater for drinking?
Okay, to answer your question, engineering solutions are available almost to every problem. It is matter of economic feasibility, and in the Gulf, of course, you can desalinate any seawater because of the financial power of the country. Here in Egypt, actually along the north coast and even in Ain Sokhna and all these touristic villages, they are mainly dependent on the desalination. And I just came across one of the villages that they are having their own desalination plant, and the cost of the 1 cubic meter is a couple of pounds. So answering the question, yes, we can. However, we need to establish the technology. It's very important to establish the technology, the manufacturing of the membrane. That's the main part of the desalination plant, and also the high pressure pumps and all the equipment and segments and components of the plant. Once it is established, the technology here in Egypt, the cost of the desalination of 1 cubic meter is going to go down, and we can definitely be able to use it. And we don't have actually to go for the sea, for the high saline water. We can even desalinate the brackish water from groundwater. This is going to be more economic efficient.
Well, also it's worth mentioning that recently the Minister of Irrigation has signed a protocol with the Spanish ambassador in terms of the desalination of the water, and in terms of also not only just to erect the plants, but also to how to produce such as you mentioned, equipment and the tools. And yes, now for that project to be undertaken, how long would it take us to really start once the agreement was simply actually, how long would it take us to start the real project itself?
I would say it depends actually on the willingness and the enthusiasm of the different partners. Like here in Egypt, in our ministry, we are ready to work even starting yesterday. We are ready to work. Once the other partner, the Spanish partners or any other partners, they are ready to work, we are ready to work with them, cooperate, so things can go very fast. Once again, the very important key in this kind of protocol cooperation is the technology transfer. We need the technology to be settled in our country. Our people will know how to operate, how to maintain, and so on. This will guarantee the sustainability of any cooperation, of any project.
Sir, you said that irrigating the plants or using this, the purification of this water for the plant depends on the quality of water. What are the guarantees that this water is purely clear for planting? Okay, great.
In our center, we are having Central Laboratory for Environmental Quality Monitoring, CLICAM. This is one of the institutions under the umbrella of the National Water Research Center, and he is working through NWRC in this project for making all chemical and physical analysis of the water quality before the treatment and after the treatment, making sure that the treated water that will be using for agriculture is going to be safe, health-wise, and so on. And also it's very important to mention that CLICAM, the Central Laboratory, has been approved recently to be Category 2 center under the UNESCO umbrella. So the Egyptian government will very soon, this represented by His Excellency our Minister of Water and Irrigation, will sign the final agreement with UNESCO for having CLICAM, which is one of our center institutions, to be Category 2 center under UNESCO. This will facilitate the exposure and more collaboration with more technological institutions worldwide through UNESCO institutions.
Actually, we already have a project in Port Said in the area of MK, and it started in 1998 concerning the recycling of the water waste, and there is another project that is in T9, and I think there were talks that almost 40% of it has been done. Would you tell us more about that project, please?
Okay. Let us first start about the project in Port Said. This one was, as you mentioned, started in the late 90s, and it was engineered wetland. And this is actually very, very important issue. Here we are having in the same pilot on the experimental station that belongs to NWRC in the Lake Manzala, we are having engineered wetland for the treatment of the wastewater of Bahr Bar drain. So throughout the current EU project that NWRC has won recently, we are going to be able to compare the efficiency and the economic feasibility of both technologies. The old one that we are using right now and already is proven to be a successful one, which is the engineered wetland for treating the wastewater, and the new technology that we are going to test and pilot throughout the current 4 years EU project that we're having.
Sir, we heard officials and even a member of parliaments are talking about purifying the sewage water for drinking. So is this safe?
Okay, technically speaking and engineering and science speaking, you can purify any water to bring it to drinking water. But the question is, on what cost?
But it's highly polluted water.
It's okay. Technically speaking, scientifically speaking, everything can be done for treating polluted wastewater, domestic wastewater, to bring it to drinking water. But the question still remains, on what cost? The cost here is playing a key factor. So here when you plan something for the country, strategic question, strategic planning, you need also to consider the economic aspect of it.
Now, for the project itself, how much water would it save once we manage to do that wastewater project? How much water would be saved?
Would be saved for what?
From the river Nile's water or from our main resources?
Okay. Let me phrase it this way. Here we are piloting the technology and the management measures that we are going to apply in the project. So it's only pilot. However, after the project finished, there is a component in the project for disseminating the results to a larger scale, to other areas, to other drains. And we are having economic partners, private sectors and others, so that it is pilot. It's a small scale one. It's probably going to be like right now the capacity of our station, we are treating 25,000 cubic meter per day with the engineered wetland. With the new technology is going to be less than that, but for testing and piloting the new technology. Once it's in and checked every single aspect of it, social, health, economic, environment, is going to be disseminated to other drains to replicate the experiment.
Sir, what is the total cost of this project and when it's going to be implemented?
Okay, the project is already started June 1st of 2016, and the total financial received from the European Commission is 2.9 million euros for all 18 partners from for all 18 partners from the different countries, as I mentioned, Italy, France, Spain, and even having China with us and Switzerland. So 2.9 million euros. The share for NWRC for doing the different studies needed, the vulnerability, the water scarcity, the impact of water shortage on food security, on environment, and also implementing the pilot in our experimental station, the financial share of NWRC to activate or to implement the activities that we are responsible for is 150,000 euros.
Yeah, I understand that actually the EU-Egyptian cooperation agreement actually extends to almost 9 to 6 projects, and that it extends to around 9 Egyptian governorates. Is that true? And would you tell us more about the mega project itself?
The mega project is with the ministry itself. Like as I mentioned, we are at the research center. We are considered the research arm of the ministry. So for any implementing real project on the ground, we start collaborating, and we are serving the Ministry of Water Source and Irrigation in doing the necessary studies and the investigation very fast upon their request to support the implementation of the project. So the EU project with the ministry, if it is implementation, we jump in and we provide and offer our help directly for doing all the basic studies and provide it to them.
For instance, the project about the deep groundwater in the Western Desert. So have you started researching on that as well?
Is it financed from the EU?
Yes, it's part of the EU, because there were various projects including that one. Maybe you haven't started it yet.
Actually, we are having in our center the Research Institute for Groundwater. We are having a specific institute for groundwater, and we are having a big project, not only with EU. We are having the RAF project, which is not only for the Western Desert, it is for Nubian sandstone aquifer. This aquifer is a huge aquifer, and it is shared between 4 countries. It is Egypt, Sudan, Libya, and Chad, and there is a specific shared authority for managing the exploration, exploitation, and management of this aquifer. And the Research Institute of Groundwater is doing an excellent job in investigating the groundwater all over, not only in the Western Desert, all over the country.
Well, Dr. عابدين at the National Research Center, thank you very much for joining us, and welcome once again to the Breakfast Show.
Oh, you're very much welcome. It's my pleasure to be here with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, now it's time for a quick sports report, and we'll be back, so stay with us.